welcome to my first reading vlog. I'm sorry there's a lot of noise going on in the background, but I promise it's gonna be a short intro, so just bear with me, it's fine. Today, as the title suggests, my roommate's cat, Todd, will be picking the next book that I'm going to read. My roommate's doing the absolute most, moving the dishes, I swear to God. What was I... Alright, so Todd is going to pick the next book that I am going to read. How are we gonna do this? Well, my roommate suggested the other day, what if we exploit Todd's addiction to Friskies and we make content out of it? So we went to Rite Aid and I picked some Frisky cans, and then I came back home and I picked 5 different books that I've never read before, obviously. I placed them in front of a blue cloth, and then I placed a Friskies can in front of each book. Meanwhile, Todd was in my roommate's room, so he had no idea what was going on. But once I was ready, we took out Todd, and now Todd has this talent where he knows that there's a Friskies can in a 1 mile radius. So all I had to do was tap on the can above the books, and now Todd, every time he hears a Friskies can, like, he will run to you at breakneck speed. So once I tapped the can, all he had to do was go towards the books, and whichever book he stood in front of first would be the book that I would select and read for this vlog. And let's see the results. Alright, so now we're here, and as you saw, Todd picked the book that he wanted. I'm gonna be honest, he picked the one I least wanted him to choose. I even put the book all the way to the left, the complete opposite side from where I was standing, where I tapped the Friskies. But I mean, Todd made his choice, and so I will read it. And he chose A Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I don't know much about this book. I know that it follows this girl, Elizabeth, who works in this magical library, and in this library the books contain these dangerous creatures, and she's kind of like the keeper in a way, I think, where she makes sure that they stay within the books. But someone releases one of the most dangerous creatures out into the world, and Elizabeth is entangled in this mess, and so she has to go to the capital to seek justice. And in her journey there, she needs to go with one of her sworn enemies named Nathaniel, and one of his friends who is a demon servant. And that is what I know about this book. It is a standalone fantasy, which is interesting because I don't really find standalone fantasy that common. So I'm afraid that the world building for this book will fall flat, but we'll find out. Just so you know, these videos, this one in particular, is pre-recorded, so this, what I just explained to you, probably happened weeks ago, and I am now in summer school. But I'm just trying to be prepared, and I'm trying to give myself enough time to do some of the projects I want to do for this channel. But I don't know how people manage to read like 5 books in 2 days. I cannot do that. And so yeah, I'm super excited, and I'll see you later. Guys, it is the next day, and I did manage to get some reading before I went to sleep last night. I only reached about page 70, so I haven't really gotten into the main plot of the story. It's basically just been groundwork and just info dumping about the world, which is interesting so far. Just to clarify, I mentioned earlier that she works in this magical library, and so what I mean by magical is that this library doesn't contain your regular old books. It contains grimoires, which are books that contain spells for sorcerers or magisters, which are like sorcerers but on crack. And the apprentices, the wardens, the directors of these libraries, their job is to make sure no one misuses these books. Especially if they're mishandled, they become monsters made of leather and ink, and they basically kill people. And so these grimoires are dangerous, and they're placed in a 10-point scale, and you know, the higher you go, the more dangerous it is. And so at some point in this story, the protagonist and the warden of this library are handling a level 8 grimoire, and later on in the story, it's discovered that someone misused this grimoire, and they're blaming the death of the warden and the misuse of the book on Elizabeth, which leads her to be kicked out of the library and taken for interrogation. I want to call it out right now before anything that I'm pretty sure the protagonist is not human. Like, she has some magical ability up her sleeve, especially because she's an orphan that was just left at the front doorstep of a library and no one really knows her origins, and I'm not sure if she remembers her origins or not. We have also met the possible love interest, Nathaniel Thorne, and his demon servant, whose name I forgot. And the author has really painted him to be like this harsh line, brooding, intimidating male character who's like a magister and super powerful, but like a softy and really misunderstood on the inside, you know what I mean? Which, if that's the case, like, I'm excited because that is my shit. Like like, he said one line and I was like, oh my god, I love you. So right now in the plot, I'm in the part where Elizabeth is being taken to wherever she's gonna be interrogated by Nathaniel and his demon servant. And yeah, I like how Nathaniel's pretty funny and Elizabeth also has her funny moments. And yeah, I haven't really formed any like official thoughts on this book just because it's way too early on and I am in page 72. But if I don't feel any emotional connection by page 100, then I'm gonna get worried, because I have like this personal rule that if a book isn't good by page 100, then it's probably not a 5-star read, or at least it's not going to be one for me. So I'll see you on the next update. It is the second day and I managed to reach page 167, and to be honest, so far the book is kind of like I don't really feel anything for it, which is concerning because I've already passed that 100-page mark and the 150-page mark and I'm trying to give a book an honest chance. But I don't know, I feel like I haven't really connected with any of the characters. The closest maybe Nathaniel, but even then, like, it's okay. I just realized that the glare of my glasses might be bothering you, so I'm gonna take them off. Sorry about that. So I guess what I have to say is that Rogerson, the author, does a great job in describing the world. Not at one point do I feel confused about the setting or anything like that. My problem is that there's no mystery in this book, or rather there is a mystery because it's about who killed the warden and who misused the grimoire, but it's not, I don't know, like, it's just, I don't care. Like, I don't care about what happened. I feel like there's a big, like, oh my god, what is Elizabeth? She's something. She's not human. But if that's, like, the main, like, revelation that they're gonna do in this book, it's gonna be disappointing, honestly. Like, there has to be some kind of, like, unexpected plot twist to save this book. Because all the problems that are presented, I find that there's not enough time for me to really feel how problematic it truly is for the main character. Because a couple pages later, the problem is resolved. And it's kind of like, well, shit, give me some space to breathe and really feel tense about what's gonna happen, but it just never, it's like she doesn't even give me that. I just realized that this might be really shaky and I'm so sorry. I'm getting like real passionate about this. I'll try to stop moving so much. But yeah, like, I guess one thing that I enjoy about this book is that Elizabeth didn't have much social interaction while growing up. So I like seeing her interact in these social events that she's forced to participate in, because it's full of like wealthy, stuck-up, rich people, and you know, they're super fake and superficial. So hearing her speak so bluntly is pretty hilarious, and I always love seeing that kind of thing in books. But that's it. And so I'm really hoping that this book gets good because it's pretty long and I gotta push through it. So see you in the next update. This is a place where I feel at home. Alright, so it's actually been 2 days since I last updated you on Sorcery of Thorns, and let me just say, the scoliosis Silas must have. Like, I feel bad, honestly, for not remembering his name in that first update, because when I last updated you, I was in a part where it was just Elizabeth, and she's a great character on her own, but it was just too much to bear, you get me? But then Silas and Nathaniel made a reappearance, and they got back into the plot, and it's like, holy shit. Like, Silas really carried the book. Like, he made it so much better. He made it from a 2.5 star read to a 3.5. Now, the reason why this is a 3.5 star read for me instead of a 5 star is for the same reasons that I've voiced to you in the previous 2 updates, where I felt like I wasn't able to emotionally connect with the character. I felt like it wasn't until the last 100 pages where I really did feel like dread for all the characters such as Elizabeth, Nathaniel, and Silas. But I mean, typically I will DNF a book if I'm not feeling it in the first 150 pages. The only reason I didn't DNF this book is because I felt the obligation to finish it through and for this reading vlog. Now, if you see me look down, it's because I have a notebook with me where I write like little bullet points of what I want to discuss, because I'll forget, and then when I'm editing I kind of hate myself for it. I want this to have a little bit of structure, you get me? But I'm not gonna be too hard on myself because this is my first, I guess, book review, so bear with me. So I want to start this off with something that I really enjoyed about this book, and that is the relationship dynamics between the characters, especially Elizabeth, Nathaniel, and Silas. From the very beginning, it's clear that Elizabeth and Nathaniel are going to be the romantic relationship in this book. And I'm not someone that necessarily needs romance in a book, but this book needed it. Like, just the plot on its own of, like, you know, trying to stop Ashcroft, the villain, and his plans to help the world, it wasn't good enough on its own. So I like the relationship between Nathaniel and Elizabeth. Like, it was very organic. It never felt like the author was shoving it down my throat. And I like the personalities. Nathaniel is a very like witty and funny character who has a dark past. His family is very complicated. He's dealing with a lot of childhood trauma, and that gave him a lot of dimension. And then Elizabeth, well, she's an orphan and she had no family, and the grimoires are basically what raised her, and so it makes sense why she's a little socially awkward. But I think that adds to her charm, and it makes her funny, because sometimes she'll unintentionally call someone out on their bullshit and superficialness, and it's just like, it's not something she's intentionally doing, but it's funny nonetheless. And so I like their chemistry together. I think they're very amusing and I like them, and I think that's one of the best parts in this book, how they developed. And every time something would happen, like, I'd get so excited. I like how Nathaniel sometimes calls her a menace and like kind of alluding that she's a pain in his butt, but it's clear that, you know, he says it with a lot of like cariño, with a lot of care. Now, somebody else that I like is Silas. I haven't made that clear. I like how unapologetically himself he is. Elizabeth at some point points out to Silas how she likes that he clearly cares for Nathaniel, but Silas tells her, like, look, anything that I do for him, it's because of this bargain that Nathaniel and I struck. I work for him. I am the source of his power, while he gives me 20 years of his life, and that's the reason why I do these things. They're my obligation. They're part of the bargain. At the same time, if you see me do something nice for him that he didn't tell me to do, it's because it also benefits me. And although those are characteristics that you typically associate to a villain in a book, I like how blunt he was about it, and it did not take away from him. In fact, it made me like him even more. I like his friendship with Elizabeth, their little adventures. I like when he would transform into a cat, because I feel like his personality really embodies, I feel, the personality of a cat, so that was perfect. And there were scenes that were completely unnecessary but appreciated. I also like the friendship between Elizabeth and Katrin. Now, that's one that made me kind of sad, because I feel like Katrin was such an interesting character. Every time she came out, she provided that comic relief. She did a lot of accomplishments, as they're stated at the end of the book. She was very intelligent, and she had no fear of getting into trouble if it was for science. I wish she played a bigger part in this plot. I think those extra pages where the author talks about her a little more would have been worth it. I feel like this is a common theme with many people in this book. For example, Warden Finch. It's clear that he was a pain in the butt for Elizabeth and Katrin, and I know I should not like him because I'm told to not like him, but they never explain it explicitly in a scene. I would have appreciated a scene where she has a flashback and she explains something that he did to her, and it really highlights how bad he is as a person, but they don't. And then talking about the warden that died, I just knew that I should have felt sad because I was told, but I never really felt it. Like, we only got 2 scenes scenes of her. The first one where, you know, she's being nice to Elizabeth and, you know, giving her opportunity to take care of one of the most dangerous grimoires in the library, which, you know, ended up biting her in the ass. The second scene is where she's talking to the director and they're basically talking shit about Elizabeth, saying how they worry that her upbringing in the library prevented her from developing these social skills that kids typically develop with other kids, but because she was deprived of that, they find that she's very like socially awkward and they find her passion about the grimoires odd. I mean, Elizabeth is showing interest in becoming a warden. She wants to become that, so I see no issue in her being passionate about it, considering that's the career she wants to pursue. That's going to be her life. Those social skills are not going to really matter at the end of the day. I found that very unfair, and it didn't help Irene in her case of me feeling emotionally invested in her story. Now, plot wise, it was very fast paced. However, there were some parts that were kind of boring and felt like a drag, but that's just me. Like I mentioned before, I noticed a pattern where the protagonist would mention a problem where she felt dread, she didn't know what she was gonna do, and then a page later something just aligned so perfectly that it solved the problem for her. And once I noticed this pattern, I never felt any kind of dread. In fact, I kind of felt like flipping the pages at some point and just skipping the whole paragraph where she explains her worries, because I was like, girl, nothing's gonna happen. So that did not help me in getting emotionally invested in this book, and that's something that's so crucial to me when I read. That's why I like to read. Something good about the plot is I like how unique and creative it was. There is a sentence, well, there's a couple sentences towards the end of this book that Rogerson writes that I feel like really embodies what grimoires are. I should read it to you. I'm gonna find it actually. So the sentences are: for these were not ordinary books the libraries kept. They were knowledge given life, wisdom given voice. They felt pain and suffered heartbreak. Sometimes they were sinister, grotesque. But so was the world outside, and that made the world no less worth fighting for, because wherever there was darkness, there was also so much light. And I don't know, I think the way that she describes it, the parallels that the grimoires have with the real world, I think it's perfect. I don't know what inspired her to write this setting, but I like the line where it says knowledge given life. I feel like the grimoires literally embody that. It really illustrates what a book lover likes, which is, you know, you're transformed into this whole world and you get attached to these characters, and you sometimes you care more for these characters than you care about people in your real life. I like that about this world. I think it was a very interesting take. One of the most unique worlds I've read, I could say. Overall, to me, this is a very character-driven book rather than plot-driven, even though it is fast-paced, but the characters are the ones that kind of made it so much better, especially Silas. Like I said, if I were to rank them, like put them on a pyramid, in the bottom, it'd be that guy that worked in the Royal Library, the one that was like so gullible. I forgot his name, but he was like, I liked him. So he would be in the bottom just because he came out a little bit of times. And then it'd be the wardens, and then it'd be like Katrin, Nathaniel, Elizabeth, then
is Maddie. And second person on top of the pyramid is also Maddie.
No, but see, this was the best for me. The characters in this book were very well developed for the most part and funny. I found myself laughing out loud many times. And so, although this might not be the best book you read, it will be funny. It will be entertaining. You're not going to regret it necessarily. Would I recommend this book to someone? Well, you see, I feel like a lot of my critiques, besides some issues with the plot, which are understandable considering that it is a standalone and, you know, they can't explore every single problem because it becomes very, very long, and it's kind of, those are the kind of things that you see in a series. So if you're not trying to commit to a whole fantasy series but just want to read something fantasy, then I do recommend this book. Also, a lot of my critiques have to do with me not being emotionally invested, but that is so subjective to each reader. I've read books that I absolutely adore while other people say that they just didn't care and they were indifferent about the characters. And it just depends. If you find that I said something that interested you, then definitely pick up this book, because like I said, you're not going to find it a waste of time. Now, if you were debating between this book and Enchantment of Ravens, I would recommend this book just because the characters are more interesting and more amusing. In comparison to Isabel and Rook, they make Isabel and Rook seem so fucking dry, and so that's the reason why I would recommend this book. I give this book 3.5 stars, but you know, you might find it more interesting and more enjoyable than me, and I would be completely interested to know what your experience was reading this book. And so if you want to leave a comment down below, it'd be great. Tell me who your favorite character is and stuff. I hope you liked this video. This is my first reading vlog, so I'm sorry if it was all over the place, if my review didn't make sense. I'm sorry. I'll get better, I promise. And so if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more videos of mine, please subscribe. Please take care. Wash your hands. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
no, amigo, deja